Hello, hopefully you enjoy this upcoming performance from National eTheatr. If you do, well, all of the artists taking part in this project, writers, directors, and actors, are self employed and currently unemployed thanks to the coronavirus outbreak here in the UK. And so, if you want to support them, you can do so by visiting the links, which will be in the description below the video, and you can donate as little or as much as you want to and feel able to. That money will all be distributed evenly among all the artists taking part. If you can't do that, at the very least, we'd love you to be able to share the videos on your social media accounts, on Facebook, on Twitter, with a friend who might be missing their weekly trip to the theatre. Anyone you think might enjoy it, that is also a massive help. You can follow the project and be alerted to any upcoming videos by following the channel, which you can do so up above, or you can follow us on Twitter on @National eTheatr. Thank you for watching, and sit back now and enjoy the show.
We made plans to go together. Just the two of us. Me and Tess. Tess Wilson. The girl I met in the JCR on my first day. When I was full of nerves and he wasn't. I was wearing this checked shirt that I'd spent too much money on and these jeans that my mother had turned into flares for me. My father had made me go to the barber's before I left home to cut my hair. I tried to grow it out that summer, and he said people would think I was a degenerate, not prepared for serious study. So I did as I was told and got it cut. Now I looked like I was ready for my first day at infant school, and the back of my neck felt cold. I sat on the sofa flicking through a magazine I wasn't really reading and wished I knew how to start a conversation with people I didn't know. After 18 years in the same place, you don't form the ability to make acquaintances easily. At least I didn't. All of the boys in my college seemed to fall into two categories. Public school boys who traded in names like Hugh Weatherall Blatherington and Ivo Archibald de Clancy, passwords to get into circles that I couldn't penetrate. And the other boys came from pit towns or inner cities, talked in broad northern accents and turned their noses up at the public school boys who returned the favour. Two sides of a coin. Two categories with neither right for me. I wasn't posh, I wasn't common, I was in the middle. Lower middle class, middle England, detached semis, boiled vegetables, holidays around the British coastline and teas with the WI. A dull, colourless existence I had been looking forward to leaving behind me all summer. All my life. But now I was there, I felt out of place. I felt alone. I sat there and listened to all these different voices, different accents, different opinions, and I thought I'd made a mistake. This wasn't for me. I should have gone somewhere else. Somewhere dull. And then she came into the JCR. She walked in with this smile and no shoes, wearing this dress. It was short and yellow. Her hair was loose and hung down in the way that my mother hated. Loose hair for loose girls. She sat down next to me and looked at me, and her smile grew bigger, and she said, hi. And I said hi back. I looked around and I realized that she's the only girl in there and all the boys were looking at her. I'm not sure you're allowed to be here. I'm not sure girls are allowed in here. I could feel my face growing red. She just shrugged and said, I'm waiting for my friend. My friend's brother, he told me to wait downstairs for him. When she said that, I remember thinking she was so confident she can't possibly be a fresher. But then she added, he's in his 3rd year. He promised his sister he would show me around. And I thought, she was new. She was new, just like me. New is the right word for Tess. There was nobody like her. Never had been, at least as far as I was concerned. In the lifeless place where I'd grown up, all the girls my age were awkward and embarrassed and quiet and giggled too much. At least they seemed that way whenever I met them. Not that that was much. We didn't mix much, the boys' grammar and the girls' grammar. There had been a girl at church, a girlfriend of sorts. We were in the same confirmation class. Alice. She was nice. Pretty. Nice and pretty, but no Tess. After that, my life seemed divided into 2 eras, before Tess and after Tess, BT and AT, like Christ. To me, she was as big as Jesus. Only I never wanted to kiss Jesus. It happened quickly. Us falling in love. We bonded over a shared interest of history, literature, and travel. Discovery, we both called it. We didn't know how it sounded. How we sounded saying it. After 4 months together, I suggested that we spend the summer backpacking through Europe, and she agreed. I was thrilled. My parents weren't. Not about Tess, they didn't know about her. I said I was going with a friend, but they still weren't happy. They didn't want me to go at all. They told me that I was a fool, that I should pick up a newspaper and read more than just the arts section. There is tension in the Middle East. The Soviets aren't going to let you in. They'll kill you first. Why don't you just wake up and grow up? I ignored them. They'd never been any fun. Just serious and quiet, full of things I couldn't do. Don't shout, don't run, don't stare, don't eat that cake, don't touch my war medal. Boring old farts, I called them, behind their backs. And worse. I scoffed at them. Rolled my eyes when they weren't looking, sighed heavily whenever they left the room. When you're young, you think you're invincible. You think you know everything. You think your parents couldn't possibly understand. Tess never told me what her parents thought. Never asked. We didn't talk much about her family. At all, in fact. I didn't know anything about her life before we met. I was excited. Excited to go together. Too excited to think about anything else. It is exciting going abroad for the first time. Especially when you spent the first 19 years of your life living in the same dark, soggy corner of England. I know it's cliched. The lower middle class university student attempting to make up for his dull childhood by backpacking across Europe and the Middle East with his girlfriend, all in the hope of discovery. I've been listening to too much Bob Dylan and Simon and Garfunkel. When I pictured what our travels would be like, I could hear the strum of their guitars. Whenever I spent time planning possible routes, I'd put on their records to inspire me. I wanted so badly to be like them. I didn't want their fame, I wanted their skill, their perspective. I could sing, and I learned the guitar. I wasn't bad. But it didn't feel like it was enough. Then I heard Paul Simon had toured through England only a few years earlier, and now look at him. Travel, I thought. That's what gave him his edge. That's what made him what I wanted to be. Enlightened. Informed. Deep. So I'd do that. Go traveling. However, when you find your girlfriend in bed with her best friend, you tend to steer away from committing to 3 months with them. Especially when she uses your own word against you. Discovery. It was all about discovery, Oliver. That hurt me the most. She and Anita discovered each other's bodies, their similarities, their differences. I think that's why I left. I had to reclaim my mantra. I went alone. My exams finished earlier than most. I was done before the end of May. Hours after the final one, I was off. A massive rucksack, a sore heart, and a feeling that nobody had ever felt as bad as I had before then. I barely had any time to say goodbye to my friend. I just wanted to get as far away from England as possible. 3 days after I left, I was in Greece. Making my way to Turkey, I hadn't stopped. I just kept going. I told myself I'd look at it all on the way back, when I was better, when I was healed. For now, I just had to keep going. To Turkey, and from there to Syria, Lebanon, Jordan, Israel. Wasn't quite sure. I just wanted to be somewhere completely different. I didn't want to see anything I recognized, anything familiar. Men in grey woolen suits and those bloody Hamburg hats, their shirt collars and their faces ironed into neat submission. The life pressed out of them. I didn't want to see women in their Sunday bests with painted smiles or girls in short yellow dresses without shoes. Oh. She told me I was old-fashioned, square, to expect from her what my parents expected from one another. Devotion in a relationship is such an archaic concept, Oliver. I thought it had just been the two of us. I was wrong. Constancy, loyalty, fidelity, they are chains to hold us down, and so bourgeois. And I hated her so much in that moment. I hated her because I knew she was right. And I knew that I had to get away from it all, from all of them. I had to go somewhere new, somewhere alien, somewhere far away. Syria, Lebanon, Jordan, Israel, maybe even Egypt and further into Africa, who knew? But when I got off the boat in Turkey, suddenly everyone had serious faces. And when I finally understood what they were talking about, I learned that there was a war between those very countries. War. At the sound of the word, I froze. I mean, my whole life I lived with the threat of an invasion from Russia, the possibility that the frosty relationship would become explosive, warnings about what to do if they dropped a nuclear bomb, but this felt different. I mean, this was different. It wasn't a maybe, it was a reality. A reality I was so close to, I could touch it. I stood on the dock, and I felt sick. I got back on the boat to Greece, went back to Athens, to the same little hotel that I'd been staying at. I paid for a private room and locked the door. I didn't leave until I knew the war was over 6 days later. When my father was 19, he was fighting in Belgium. He came back missing 3 fingers and any sense of humor he might have had. My whole life, he was just this blank, empty man who went to work and frowned. No real personality, just the shape of what might have been. All that time, I never truly appreciated why that was. What he had seen and done, and the severity of it all. Until then, suddenly, everything my parents had seemed so overly afraid of became very real to me. I felt very alone and afraid. When I first left England, I was so determined to have a good time that when Tess rose up in my thoughts, I would push her away, refuse to think about it, refuse her company. It happened a lot. And joining me, running races. Every new country that I entered, she'd appear at the border and tell me how beautiful the land was. Each room that I stepped into, she'd be there, waiting for me. Sometimes I would see her face in others. Then always she would disappear when I told her to. She would walk out of my mind and I would sing along with Bob or Paul in my head instead, and she would remain a passing thought, brought on by the breeze. Nothing worth dwelling on. But stuck in that room, stuck in the heat, Paralyzed by my own fears and furious at my own naivety, she returned to my thoughts and would not leave. She sat next to me. She lay on the bed, peeked out from under the covers, leant against the wall, sat on my lap, hung onto me like a child, sat and stared through me with contempt, taunting me all the time, taunting me, laughing, jeering, scoffing, telling me that I was a coward just like my parents, like all those people in that shitty town that I'd grown up in. Dull, boring, and afraid. I began to suspect that she had wanted to be caught in the act. She had never wanted to come with. She knew that I would fail, that there was no depth to me, nothing to make me equal of my heroes, not now, not ever. I asked her that. And she danced before me in that hot, sticky room. I asked her, "Did you ever want to come?" She just laughed. And I asked, "Did you ever even love me?" And her laughter grew until the room was full of it, and she laughed and laughed and mocked me and jeered and crowed. What a failure I was. I tried to reason, to explain. All I needed was a chance to grow, to learn, to discover, but it only made her laugh harder. I tried to make her leave. I did try. I'm not crazy. I'm not mad. The second she first appeared, I shut my eyes, but when I opened them, she was still there. So, after all the laughing and the jeering and all the things she said, I couldn't wait for her to go on her own, so I closed my eyes again and blocked my ears. But she remained. Going through all my favorite songs, I tried to sing her away in my head at first and then out loud, but she just sang my songs back at me louder. She laughed harder. She just wouldn't go. So then I tried to force her out. I tried to physically push her immaterial figure out of the room. Each moment that I thought I had her in my grasp, she was standing somewhere else. And the laughter turned into a gleeful howl, and the howl became music, a song of mockery. I hated her more than I had ever done because now I knew that she was right. I was dull before this trip, and I'd be dull for the rest of my life because that's all I ever had the potential to be. The only discovery I had ever made was of my own inadequacy. The war ended, and I went straight to the airport and spent the rest of my money on the first flight home to England, to safety. And there she stood behind me at the counter, laughing. And there she was, following me on board the plane, sat next to me in my row, ordering a drink from the air steward. When I got off the plane, she came with me in the car on the motorway. She was there at my parents' plain suburban home, still laughing. I could see her turning up her nose at the sight of my family. At the sofa suite my father had saved up to buy my mother, the large floral pattern, the matching cushions. She snickered at the pictures on the walls, the china figurines displayed on the mantelpiece of the gas fireplace. She rolled her eyes when my parents said I'd made the right choice to come home, scoffed when they said I was being smart. After dinner, she chewed the carrots on my mother's plate and said that she had overcooked them. She said that the sausages looked strange and the potatoes were grey. When my mother offered me a ginger beer, she sighed into my ear and told me I was becoming one of them. After dinner, we watched the news, and she sat on top of the television, still laughing at all of the things that I said and did, all of the things my parents said and did, all the things that they were, I was. And when it was time for me to go to bed, she followed me to my room and lay next to me in a narrow bed, and still she laughed and laughed. I spent the remainder of my summer working in my father's office. Tess, still lingering in my consciousness, sitting at the desk next to me, asking for half of the corned beef sandwich that my mother had packed me for my lunch, telling me I'd made a spelling mistake as she leant across my desk. I asked my father if he'd ever experienced something similar, and he just looked concerned, so I didn't mention that again. She was there, all summer long, laughing, and there was nobody I could tell. When I turned to university, I was sure that really seeing her would shake away her phantom, but by the end of my first day back, I heard that she had dropped out or else been sent down. Nobody seemed to know or care. My friends simply shrugged and suggested that we go for a pint. I nodded and said nothing. But inside, my heart was singing, and I thought maybe that was it. I was free, at last. But when I opened the door to my bedroom in search of my wallet, she was there, waiting, ready to follow me to the pub, to sit at our table next to me, always. And I realized I was forever haunted. As the years passed, as the decades changed, she was still there. She's still here. Every choice I make, I see her. Every time I try to change, she's there. She's here. She's love.